Hello, everybody. It is Saturday, the 7th of June, and I want to talk about the simulation theory and the danger of the simulation theory, and just to show you what kind of matrix that will create. It will create a world, first of all, in the mind of the people. God creates with the word. God creates through the story, His spirit. He works on the spirit. He works on thoughts and emotions. That is how He creates. And He creates worlds in which people have their lives, their being. The matrices that have been created through the word, through the creation of perceptions, were artificial matrices, because most of them did not have their roots in the solid reality that we're in. And there is a solid reality that we're in. To enter into one of those matrices, you have to deny yourself and the reality that you're in, to live in a different reality. That is what has always been done. So, I want to look at the kind of world that this theory would create, and also going by history, the worlds that have already been created, the worlds that we thought we were in, and we spoke and we acted according to what we thought we were in, which was not real. So, and the whole thing being based on science. That's another thing. The whole thing is science. Trust science. It has been done so many times. I mean, if you go back to, let's start with the old mystery schools. Yeah? There was search, and that was actually a scientific search. Now, the means by which they got their information, you might argue about that, but it was scientific. You know, the ways by which they got their knowledge, which was gnosis. You may argue about that. It was obviously not Newtonian. You can measure it and you can weigh it, and you can prove it in that way. It was not done in that way. But it was scientific in a way of that they brought knowledge. The knowledge was brought into the mystery schools. It was debated, it was discussed, it was compared to other knowledge. That is the way of science. Yeah, it is a debate. It is the constant finding of new knowledge, and then, they were creating models of what it is we are and what it is we're in, but it was most definitely not created by one that was in control of everything. But it was, as I said, a debate, a constant debate, a constant conversation about what it is we are and what it is we're in. And that's science. That is the way of science, is the way of debate. Until Christianity came and suppressed any debate. Brutally. I mean, the spread of Christianity here in Europe and all over the world was a bloodbath. Again, through fear. He spread the one truth through fear, the truth of the one God through fear. And it changed the matrix. It completely changed the matrix of what people thought they were and what they were in. Whereas before, mean, not only in the mystery schools, but also the nature religions before that. I mean, the mystery schools came out of the nature religions. Science that came out of the nature religions. We saw ourselves in a web. Yeah? That in a web of all. We were a part of that. Whereas in the new matrix we saw the one God that was in control of everything, whose will had to be done. That was a new matrix, and it was created by the Word. Nothing else. It was a creation of a perception, which in this world is not based on reality. The one that is in charge of everything else is not a reality in nature. There is no one thing. It's not reality in this world. It had to conquer this world. It had to conquer, it had to impose its thoughts, its systems, the pyramid system onto the natural world. Because in nature it does not exist. There is not one that rules over everything else. That is not the truth of this world, that is not our truth. But it had to be superimposed. This new story had to be superimposed. And then, yes, being taught to people as a reality in the churches and in the schools, Christian schools, that reinforce this matrix. This is what you are and that is what you're in. And as I said, the atrocities that could be done in that matrix by those that followed that thought, by those that believed that that is who they are and that is what they're in. And the atrocities that they could then perform. Now, to be quite honest, in Christianity at least, there is an acknowledgement of that there is a human spirit that is in opposition to the will of God. Yeah? At least there is an admission that that spirit exists. There is a human spirit that is in opposition to God. I mean, of course, it's been called Satan and evil, and God that goes and commits genocide all over the place is good. Somehow. We're just not seeing it because we're in opposition to accepting that as the one enlightened truth. But I mean, at least there is an admission that that opposition exists. Yeah, taught as bad, but it exists. That will be gone in the new matrix. That opposition will be gone completely. As I said, Christianity was spread the old-fashioned way. Brutal suppression. Slaughter. That is how Christianity was spread. If we got more sophisticated, again, Darwin. Let's go to Darwin because he created a new matrix, or the theory created a new matrix. Actually, not so much new, it fitted into the old one. That's why they elevated it. It served them. That theory served them. And again, in the name of that theory, a lot of atrocities were done and actually are still done at this moment in time. The idea of the survival of the fittest, or of those that are forms of life that are beneath, the Übermensch. Again, Darwin was trying to go the way of science. He created a theory that should have been up for debate. It should have been the basis for a debate. That debate never happened. Again, that theory was taken, it was elevated as the only truth, although it had more holes than a Swiss cheese. It was just simply elevated to be a truth. And again, it was taken into the schools for the next generation to be taught as the truth. Because that is how you create the matrix. You teach it to the children. You make it their reality, the reality that they live in, how they know themselves and what they are in. You teach them. Spread the gospel. Bring the children onto the truth, so to speak. That is how it's done. Again, it's nothing physical about that, the way a matrix is built. It's purely create a reality in the mind of the people, detached from the truth of this world. You're going higher up, people. You're going into expanded awareness of the truth that is not in this world. Again, as I said, the debate did not happen. It was suppressed. And in this case, not brutally suppressed. Yeah? It was already a case of, the truth that could be heard and the truth that was printed, the truth that was allowed to go into the schools and into the universities, and the truth that was not, the debate that was not allowed. It was simply done that way, creeping in rather than, visibly being imposed by war, by brutality. It just crept in. And it worked. So many still living in the matrix of Darwin's origin of the species, survival of the fittest. That is this world. That is the world you live in. No, it's not. It's not based on reality. If you compare it to the reality of nature, you will see the holes in the Swiss cheese. But you're not allowed to do that, to compare or to have a discussion. End of. This is how it is. This is the matrix you're living in. So let's come to that new theory now, the simulation theory, which is in the end not expanded awareness or we have just this really great new insight. It's all new. We're going into a completely new world. No, we're not. It is simply an expansion of religion, of the God story. That's all it is. And if I said the God story is already built on very shaky grounds, this one has, or talking about Swiss cheese, that has got more holes than even Darwin's theory, the simulation theory. But what if it creeps in? What it creeps into the mind of the people? I don't think this will be done by war. It will creep into the mind of the people. Simply, again, by suppressing any other information. They're in control of the news. They're in the control of the printing presses. As much printing as there still is. They're definitely in control of the internet. through the algorithms. Again, create a new reality, not because it's real. Actually, this new reality already says there is nothing real. Don't even deny yourself, deny your own spirit, deny that you even exist. That's where we're going. As I said, in the old religion, there was at least an acknowledgement that there was something like a human being and that there was a spirit of a human being. We're doing away with that completely, simply by the word. We're doing away with the spirit by the word. By creating a perception in which the spirit is not a part of that perception. It won't be there. So, what kind of matrix are we going to be living in? Well, we won't be. Our children will be. Because the way it's done is, first of all, you take them into the wilderness, you indoctrinate them into the new thinking. Yeah, you're no longer in Egypt, you're now in a new world, ruled over by a new God. Everything has changed. The world hasn't changed. But for you, everything will have changed. And in the wilderness, those that could still remember Egypt, those that still had the knowledge of Egypt, they did not enter into the new land, into the new matrix. They only got out of the wilderness when all the knowledge, the old knowledge, was gone. That means the people were dead. That generation was dead. And the new generation that was from the beginning indoctrinated into this thinking, they were allowed to go forward into the new world. That is how it's done. So those of us now that can still see the truth, no, we cannot enter into this fandangled new world. We will have to be gone for that world to come into existence completely and to be the only one. And as I said, it is just an elaboration on the old idea. It's repackaged, resold. Yeah, God was on a mountain somewhere. Then God became spirit. And in the new story, God will be an alien race, a wonderfully enlightened, superior alien race that are computer geniuses. That's the new God. And God creates not a world, but a simulation. God created, in the beginning, God created the simulation. That's where we're going. And in the simulation, you are a sim. You are now absolutely nothing. And matter is not real. Nothing is real. And then nothing matters. Because it is not real. It is just a game. You indoctrinate an entire generations into thinking, seeing themselves as being that. I am absolutely nothing now. I'm remote controlled from somewhere else. That is who you are. A remote controlled character. And whatever is playing out doesn't actually matter because it's just a game. Now, I don't know if you've watched your children and the games that they are playing and what they are doing in those games through the character. I mean, some of those games are beyond brutal. They're horrible. And although some, I must say some of, at least my children, yeah, they act one way in their character, but they can still switch back to the real world where they would not, absolutely not, act in that way in the real world. Obviously, they can tell the difference. And they are still human beings, and they still know according to it, good and bad, according to a human being. Yeah, but again, in the game, it doesn't matter because it is not real. And then they can do whatever. What if they thought the game was real? And this is not. Here comes the switch. Right now, human solid reality is real. That is the game. That is the illusion. What if that is switched on its head? Where the real, because that's what they're working on. Where the real world becomes the illusion. Humanity becomes the illusion. And the game becomes reality. You are in a game. And you're not even in control. The controller is held by somebody else. And then what will be possible? What will a human being be capable of doing? What atrocities will a human being do out of that perception of themselves? It was bad enough in Christianity. But I say we're taking this to another level. We're definitely going to another level of the game, of their game. What will human beings do if that is the perception of themselves? There is really, again, there will be no more mention of human spirit or human being real in any shape or form. Existing. Human doesn't exist. I do not exist. None of this matters. And then anything will be possible. There will be no more restraint of any kind. And again, you know them by their fruit. You know the ones that created the matrix before. You know them by their fruit, by the outcome of their teaching. What it creates in this world, what it creates in human, to start with. And as I said, it was brutal slaughter to start with. It is genocide. In the whole tree of knowledge. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. What is coming in the simulation idea is just an expansion of that. And it's not expansion into a truth, because it was never the truth. It was not human truth to start with. It was not our truth to start with. Never was. Our truth was in opposition to this. But as I said, we will have no truth. The next generation will have no truth. Will have no being. Will not exist. Just a game. Anything is possible. And the ones that are holding the controllers will still be the same ones that have always held the controllers. And what they will create will be what was created before. Slaughter. And it says, and I really want to show you how dangerous even the existence of this theory is that the theory should not even exist. If you say that is just a niche thing at the moment, yeah, as I said, there's still enough in opposition. I've heard a lot of opposition from scientists, yeah, against that. As I said, the thing has got more holes than Swiss cheese. So that opposition is still there, and as you say, it's just a small group of lunatics that think that. Christianity grew from very, very small roots. It was a small seed that was sown, an idea that was sown into the mind of the people. And it grew into a mighty tree. It spread. It grew. It started from a small seed. It grew because it was fed. There's a beast that was fed, that was encouraged to grow. The way a tree is encouraged to grow, when you nourish it and you give it all the right and stuff to grow. And that's what they did. And humanity grew, Christianity grew in the mind of the people. Just because this is just a very small thing at the moment does not mean it cannot grow. Especially at the moment where we are in the wilderness, where the old matrix is falling apart and something new is trying to create the next world. A new idea, an idea that is going to create the next world. And yes, it could be that. It could be that the simulation theory wins out to become the one truth in the world to create a world. And I said, this one is really not based on any solid reality whatsoever. It is detached from everything. The only thing that can make that real is us, when it becomes a reality in us, through us. But it will be a reality within a reality, the real truth of this world. A matrix within a truth. And just because it's small now does not mean it cannot take over. Especially if it is based on the idea of technology and those that are in charge of technology are in charge of the flow of information. It'd be easy enough to make this the only truth. As I said, our generation will not see it, because we still remember a different way. But once we are gone and bring the children unto me, and what can a human being do if it no longer knows that it is real, that it has a spirit, that it is consciousness? If it thinks it is just a remote controlled puppet, that's what human thinks it is and what it is in, and then what? What will they do out of that perception of reality? As I said, it's not a new idea. It's not an expansion of anything. It's a repackaging of the old and being sold as something new. It's not. So we're just going to the next level of the game. And we need to stop playing that game altogether if we want to survive. We need to stop playing their game. Make it a reality in our heads. Base what we are on the true reality, which does exist. Anyway, folks, here, I think I leave it at that for today. And I talk to you again soon. Bye.